However, before any of you guys bounce, because I know we're going to give a break right at 11:15, and then we'll continue with Q&A for anyone who wants to stick around. So Mark was like, you got 2 hours. I'm like, we're not talking for 2 hours. Come on. And I know Michelle Woods is doing something on AI, which is going to be tremendous. So we'll give a nice little break at 11:15. But before we do, I need all of you to do me a favor. All right. So I want you guys to cheer like there's no tomorrow. No, here's what we're going to cheer. We're going to cheer with purpose. We're going to cheer like we're at the end of 2025 and our business doubled. Okay. And not just because of rate drop of 1 full percentage point. We're going to do it because we put in the work, we put in the effort, we were consistent, and we were intentional with what we were doing to grow.
That's right.
But we're going to do this. We're going to cheer really loud, and at the end, we're going to say, "We love you, Craig." Okay? Did you hear the grief Craig was giving me last night? All right. So we're going to do it. I'm going to put it on TikTok. I'm going to put it on LinkedIn and tag Craig Haskins. So actually, don't say Craig, say Haskins, because that's more impactful. Okay. All right. So we love you, Haskins. So we're going to cheer. And then I'm going to go boom, and we're going to say, we love you, Haskins. All right. I'm going to start it here and then pan around. So get ready to cheer. All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Woo! All right. And one more time. We love you. We love you, Haskins. All right. Wonderful. So, yeah. Haskins was giving us grief last night. We love it. We love all of it. Dick said it so well. Like we teach social media. We teach marketing. But more than that, and I'll be full transparency, I hate social media, okay? I have 4 kids. I've been on the beach with them each day. They're down here at the conference with me. And like social media can be a massive distraction for us, right? I mean, a huge time suck. So we come in and we teach teams how to leverage a social media strategy that fits into their overall sales strategy. Where are you going? Where are you growing? And so today is not going to be anything about social media, maybe one little bullet point or two, but not about social media. Today is about leading through change and tough times, because we've been in tough times. Ever since the market turned, and even before the market turned, we were in tough times. The pandemic was tough, a lot of burnout. But what happens is, oftentimes as leaders, and I'm guilty, we have amnesia, right? And we're charging forward, and what's happening with the PTSD, what's happening, I think we heard from one of the ladies here, I was not in her session yesterday, but taking care of the health of our team, which ties into a lot of what we're going to go into today. So we're going to touch on social just a little bit, but more from a sales and marketing perspective. What we see so often is fly-by-night, what I call fly-by-night syndrome, or microwave mentality. Okay, I'm a leader, and I'm the world's worst. I'm right there with them. It takes a lot of discipline to be the tortoise. I'm more of the hare. Every time I read the book, I really want the hare to win because I identify with the hare. And I'm like, you're so close, dude. You're going to make it. But the tortoise beats every time. I can't change the end of that book. Every time I try to read it and hope that ending changes, it doesn't. Why? Because microwave mentality doesn't work. Why? It spins more people off than it keeps and retains. Why do I say that? We coach a lot of sales teams, killer salespeople, and we will be in with them in the trenches, growing their title business. And then we'll start hearing the lament. Leadership this. Our owner retired, moved to Florida. He's so aloof, head in the sand. He never shows up, or she never shows up to stuff. I feel like I'm doing it all on my own. They want us to do more video, and I've been tasked with it all. And I'm trying to get all my branch managing attorneys onto video, and there's nobody reinforcing me at the leadership level. So as we're coaching teams, this talk today is geared more towards leadership to say, this is what it's going to require in order for that change to stick, and in order for those killer people to stick with you. Okay. And also not just sales and marketing, you have some killer internal people that you want to stick with you for a long time. So we're going to address that on both sides. Andrew, I mean, I'm kind of setting the stage here, but I mean, you're in the trenches every day too. Like,
I mean, Tim said tough times. I would say that the last year has gotten better. We all know that numbers have come up a little bit. Rate drops are happening, hopefully, and going to be ongoing. So that's great. But sometimes it's a tough time, I think, with the stuff we're trying to implement, because we talk to a lot of folks all over the region, and we get an idea, we go to an event, we listen to a podcast, we hear something in business that we want to do. And you all are probably thinking in your heads right now, man, there's one thing that I know I want to do in my business and I need to do in my business. And then the tough time sometimes rolls in where it never materializes. And before we know it, 8, 9 months, a year, 2 years go by. And it's like, man, I wish I could have done that. One of our competitors did it and they're seeing results, right? Yeah. So when we get around and work with folks, we're always trying to help you guys accelerate that process. Like, what is it going to take to actually start doing it? But then do it in a way that Tim said fits your style, fits your team, doesn't burn the team out, because jumping from flavor to flavor with a microwave mentality, our dad used to joke, we live in a world where you just buy a dinner, pop it in the microwave, right? No one has to put time and effort into anything anymore. So how do you build something consistent that will last? And so as we go through today, that's kind of the topic. We're going to talk about a few different things.
Absolutely.
And we're going to try to give some nuggets along the way, hopefully some strategies you can plug and play coming out of today.
So let's go through the playbook real quick. So intentional culture building and nurturing. All right. We're going to really focus in on the intentionality there. And then creating and aligning with company vision. I feel like a lot of times we either have a good vision or we don't, first off, but then is there alignment, and how do we generate more alignment with the team? Number 3, change management. I tell Andrew, sales coaching for us mostly is change management, because there's always going to be resistance when you want to go from good to great. All right. And then number 4 and number 5 are more about the health of our team, but info overload is real. Okay. And streamlining communications. There are some things we have to learn and get better at, especially in this industry, to streamline communication. And then the team health and empathy. So we'll end there on a really good positive note. But let's dig in. So intentional culture building, nurturing. I like to say, like, leaders know that culture is critical for success, yet most struggle to improve theirs. Why? Because it's you can't do it overnight, right? And what I say is culture often feels vague, hard to grasp, and even harder to change. But culture is the thing that I think we all know when we see it. We all know when we experience it, right? Think about any retail experience. Think about anything you've ever done. We know when we experience it, but it's hard to put a finger on. One thing I want to say to back up, because you probably were wondering on the front slide before I flipped out and we loved on Haskins a little bit. The background picture, I do want to draw attention to this. So you probably said, why Roman soldiers, right? Rome was not built in a day, is why I put it up there, okay? But the Roman Empire, they had this, like in a soldier's creed, it was called festina lente, okay? Festina lente meant to make haste slowly. It meant to move together as a unit. In fact, everything about their armor, everything about their creed, everything about how they went to war, and they were the most lethal force to deal with, to reckon with. Everything about them, though, every decision they made was based on festina lente. It's moving to make haste slowly. So while it sounds like an oxymoron, they knew how to make haste, but they knew how to do it together. They knew how to protect each other. They knew how to huddle. They had the best shields in the industry at the time, right? They were a war machine. So I say that, and I put it up there because I want, if we remember anything out of today, it's make haste slowly, okay? Just wisdom when we go apply change to our businesses. So let's jump into this. I talked about, we know when we feel it, right? Yep. You take your dog to the vet, right? It's from that initial interaction, the initial walk-in. It's not just the vet who makes you feel good. It is that initial person coming out to get your dog, right? It is the initial, it's the processing of it. It's everything about it. It was like, there's something practiced here. You can feel it, right? Take your kids to the dentist, and I've taken my kids to multiple. I have 4. You have orthodontists. They're all in braces now, or almost all in braces now. My goodness. Or the eye doctor, whatever it is. You can sense when there is a practiced rhythm of culture, right? So culture is felt. And I love Peter Drucker's quote, says, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
So culture. Can anyone just shout out, like, what do y'all think? What does that mean? Because for me, sometimes it's a challenging word if we just think about it. Like, what does it mean for our company? You guys want to shout some things out?
Mood.
Love it.
That's a good word. Environment. What else?
Feeling.
Energy. Energy can be one way or the other, right? Anything else?
Set of ideals. And I would take it a step further and say common ideals, right? So are you able to, okay, we're live on TikTok, by the way. So if I hit something over here and interrupt, it's because someone's doing something. So it's a set of common share ideals, and we're going to get into alignment a little bit after the initial opening here. But I like to take everything down to think about it in the easiest term possible. It's your company's personality. What you experience when someone reaches out, and our mood can impact that. Like, God knows, sometimes I'm in a mood, right, Joe? Things happen. We get in a mood, it happens once in a while. But overall, the more consistent you can be with your company's mood or your company's personality, the more you're going to attract A players,
and then clients that want to work with you. And that goes back to how we build culture as a team. And I think there's some very clear things we can point to that say this works, and that's what we're going to do today. And then a couple things that we can go through that are like, stay away from this because this can kill your culture. Nothing worse, and it hurts my heart a little bit, Tim, because when we get out and you said we coach teams, not just on sales, but I get in and do a lot of video, get in and do a lot of like operational streamlining and like where can you get better, where can you grow in your online presence, where can you grow in your systems and processes. It breaks my heart when I sit with somebody who said, the owner told me I need to do X. So we're helping him do X, and we invest a lot of time doing X. And then it never happens because there's no buy-in from the rest of the team. And so we wasted all this time, this energy, this resource on something, and nothing ever happens with it. Another thing you see commonly is with culture, when we think about it directly, it also breaks my heart when I'm out there with teams and we're talking and we turn around and folks are like, man, like our company's doing things, but honestly, I don't even feel like I want to be a part of it because there's such a disconnect between leadership and the team. And so the goal today with culture is, again, we're going to point to some specifics, then what not to do's, and then here's some things that we think you should do. Yeah. And if you're not a leader on a team and you're more of an individual producer, I was always taught in my time in banking, you might not be in charge, but you can still influence. And so you can take some of these things back and have conversations of how can we get better at doing some of these things as a team that might enhance our personality and our mood, help us all show up more consistently. Let some of the winds battering the ship outside not cause our moods to sway every day so that our teams know what to expect, our clients know what to expect. Yeah. So, Tim, let's get into it. But that's what I think about when I think of culture. It's just that personality. Yeah. How can we improve it?
Put on your title agency owner hat for a second. I know you coach with a lot of owners. Put your hat on, and I'm coming in, and I'm Big Hoop now. I'm you, okay? You're the agency owner. Let me see if I can do Big Hoop for a minute. Okay. So, so how do you help your team find greater purpose in their work past the transaction? Like, what are some practical ways in a title company?
Well, we see this thing on the screen. In my brain, I'm like, okay, greater purpose. What does that mean? No one's going to see your greater purpose for your company until you see their greater purpose for their life. And so my recommendation to any owner or yourself is, we can look at this as individual producers. Someone told me the other day, I don't know who it was on, it's okay to be off. It's okay to take some time for yourself because we get so busy in the business, right? So if you want folks to recognize your purpose, you need to first see their purpose and help them achieve that in their lives, period. I mean, now how do you do that, Tim? How do we dig in and help folks recognize their purpose and support them?
I'll say one thing too, and I used this story not too long ago with something yesterday. One of the reasons I'm here at FNF is the leader here in the region. I'm not going to call him out because he's in the room and I don't want to embarrass anybody. But, when we sat down and first initially talked, it was not sitting here saying, this is how great we are. It was sitting down and saying, here's why we're talking and here's where I see you fitting in the vision I have. Here's what I think you could bring to life in the vision I have. The question to every owner or manager, or even if you're a junior leader, do your people feel and know very clearly what they're able to bring to life within your title company? Is that clear to them? Are you reinforcing it? Have you articulated it? Have you helped to clarify? Some people have been with you forever. You need to sit down and refresh that. But when you go out to recruit people, stop talking about how great your title company is. You're not all that great, actually. We're all not that great. What we are is we bring great people to the table who make us great. So let's stop talking about the shell and start sharing the heart and where somebody's heart could come and play and beat one with ours. So you said it so well. To get them interested in your greater purpose, be interested in their purpose. It's awesome. So a couple of practice.
Just to take that again even further, like at a very ground level, take the time to get to know, and this goes to your real estate and lender relationships too, because I know me personally, and I point all my fingers at myself. For me, it's easy to get into a conversation and just jump right to business. Anyone in the room like me, like we talk to someone out there, we jump right to business. Yep. I wouldn't say I'm the best at relationship building. So in my career, especially back when I was a leader, I had to be very intentional with going around and asking and getting to know my folks. But I remember you talk about when we came over here, I know one of the things that Tim called me after his meeting, and I'll call Joe out. Joe, this was Joe in the back of the room. That's why we're here at FNF. And Tim said one of the things that mattered most was Joe at dinner or at lunch looked at your wife and asked your wife, like, what do you need Tim to do more for you, or something to that nature. And because it was more about how can you fit in our culture, we want what you have, but it's also equally as important that what we're having you do fits better with your life. those are the things that will sell your team on sticking with you through the long term. Focus more on what they need. If you recognize the cues, leaders need to be better sensors. You ever walk in the room with someone and you just know something's not right? Be the person to ask, hey, everything okay? Are you good? Because if you can sense that and lean into that more, care about your person's purpose, you don't know what they might have going on. Culture starts with you caring more and being more. And we're going to get into empathy as a leader a little later, but it starts with you caring more about that.
Yeah.
So if that helps. Again, it's not to beat a dead horse. Care about your purpose, your people's purpose. They'll care about your purpose.
Yeah. And then also, just to segue into point number 2 here is, we do get busy completing transactions. There's a lot of work that goes into, and Haskins said it so well last night, right? Title search, curative, closing, or rescheduling, right? There's a lot of work that goes into every touch of it. So we do get busy with transactions. So a couple of things there is, what can we do to help them, our people within the company, to go out and spend more time with who we're actually helping, right? With our referral partners, with our business partners. And one thing that we oftentimes think of when we think like doing something as a team, a lot of times we just think, massive budget involved. And I've seen a lot of title companies over the last year take their foot off the gas pedal of company culture building or events because they're hurting, because they're going deal to deal and just trying to get the business in. It's been a tougher market. What I like to always point to is there are so many nonsensical, low-cost ways other than time, time commitment or giving up some time. There are some low-cost ways. Is that actually plugged in, brother? You might want to make sure that's turned on. Can we make sure the power's turned on or plugged in back here? I don't know. We got some signals going off up here. So there we go. Something changed there just a second ago. Give us a second here, folks. So there we go. Yeah, we're good. Okay, all good. You pushed the right button. So just looking out into our local market at maybe some unique, hyper-local things we can do with, hey, maybe our real estate partner is doing something with Habitat for Humanity. How can we pile on and add, enough people don't show up to these things anyway. We know how it goes. How can we pile on? How can you have different employees put names in a hat of a local charity? I know a great company, and a percentage of every closing goes to a lottery. And then the employees, they all put the names in the hat. And at the end of every month, they draw a name, and that percentage goes to that charity. How great to let all of your people feel engaged with a give back. So there's a lot of things we can do, very low cost, that are what I call culture enhancing. Because anytime you can take your operators outside and see the bigger picture, the better off your company is going to be. And we don't do enough of it, I believe.
Can I address kind of this hybrid? Are we all feeling the effects post-COVID of this hybrid work environment? We're all, like many of us, work in a very hybrid work environment, but we feel the effects of it, especially with our team, where they might need to come in more of a 9 to 5. So I kind of want to talk about, because it's changed. Like culture's changed. Like in today's world, if you're trying to hire and you're not offering hybrid, it's harder sometimes to attract people now. They don't want to commute into the office every day. So I think it's important we talk about from a leadership
I have it
perspective.
on one of the other slides, but we can talk about it now if you want to.
Kind of,
pull it up.
This to me is culture, right?
Yeah.
So it's, again, if someone's purpose is before, you got to put their purpose before your purpose to know that that's going to get you a stronger relationship. It's going to help you grow your business. But that does boil down to the very simple things of your flexibility with your team. It boils down to how you manage sales, how you manage key performance indicators, which are all super important. But I think a lot of folks miss the boat. We manage minutia in things. And when I say minutia, I mean you manage the fact that someone showed up 10 minutes late. And the first part of that conversation is you showed up 10 minutes late instead of, hey, is everything okay? What's going on? It's not like you to show up 10 minutes late. And caring about their purpose first. So when we talk about culture, before you can go do team building, you got to focus on your own relationship, because again, no one wants to do team building if they don't think that it's worth investing in the team. So I don't want to lose the fact that some of these little battles we fight as leaders, sometimes it matters more about caring and understanding first, and then we can go implement.
Right.
And then to the team building piece, this is a big tip for you guys. Flip some of your next meeting. Who does consistent team meetings in here? Or tries to? Okay. Flip some of your team meetings start it with gratitude. And what I mean by that is go around the room and have everyone either speak something they're thankful for. But what I even like better, and this really built a positive culture when I was leading teams, we would spend the first 10 minutes going around and writing a card to someone else on the team, or in this case, one of your clients, and then everyone would go around and pass the cards and sign them. So you're automatically starting with gratitude leading into any meeting. So then your culture is able to be built on that. And you're coming in with a gratitude mindset versus just, hey, we're here, we need to talk about numbers that aren't quite where they need to be.
It's powerful.
So again, the gratitude, and then the community events, like it's free. Your food bank wants volunteers to serve a meal. The shelter down the street needs people to walk the dogs. Like there are so many things you can do for team building that don't have to cost an arm and a leg. And some of our team building stuff is always geared around more bigger events we do. Great. But I think there are things we can do to give back and build a strong culture there.
There are. And then with that, though, other, title companies that you play nicely with in the industry, or business partners, you can actually do things together. I know several that go out and they collaborate and do like a 5K, or they'll do like a walk for charity, and they'll do it together. So find some industry partners who you can, hyper locally build with, and even some frenemies. By the way, you will learn from those frenemies, what I call frenemies, because I know a couple of people who call each other frenemies and they get along great. But you'll learn from each other, and actually you'll grow. You'll benefit from that shared collaboration. Yeah. So just again, think about ways going into the fall and winter, when it's going to get cold, when people are going to have holidays, when there's going to be a lot of busy schedules. Think about ways that you can be asking your team, what can we do during the holidays? What can we do? Think ahead into 2025. What's coming? What do we need to start leading? What tone do we need to start setting as leaders? So let's move on to creating and aligning, because there's some things here that'll play right into what we were saying. But creating and aligning with company vision. I think, again, many companies put significant time and energy into identifying their desired culture and establishing goals. Like we'll do that. We'll sit down and do a business plan, or sometimes we don't. Like we've been coaching some dial companies. They don't even have it written down. There's no business plan. They were inherited the company. They've been running it for a long time, and they just don't really know what the heck they're like, where we're going. The M&A guys were here yesterday talking about like begin with the end in mind. And I'm a big Stephen Covey proponent. Begin with the end in mind. What's 5 years? Where do you see yourself 5 years down the road? Right. Where do you see yourself 10? Do you have that articulated? Are you moving towards that? Or do you just kind of feel like a wandering generality month to month? We had a good month, right? So creating and aligning with company vision is powerful, because you are going to have some core values that you can consistently center the team around. So why don't we dig into some of the strategies around here? Because what would you add there?
The culture is built from first caring, and then once everyone's kind of pulling together as a team, you can start working on that common language and the common things we're working towards. One of my favorite bosses I ever worked for, when I was a leader and led a team, helped me understand this concept. Every team meeting can't be different as it's structured. You need to have some level of consistency for your team. The things that you're looking at on a consistent basis on performance, and a few things. So my categories were, and when I coach folks, if you don't have categories, start with these. It's going to be growth. So what does growth in your business look like? That should always be an agenda item in your meeting. You should have something in our industry. It should be in the top controls and operations. So what are those operational things that matter to your business that need to be going well? And then we would focus on team member experience. So how's everyone on the team? What are the things we're working together on a team? And then your client experience. Because to me, team member experience always comes before client experience. Your team's not happy, your clients aren't going to get the best result. But those were the 4 pillars that we always would be consistent with. Now, within that, it keeps you from jumping around. And you can apply this to business development too. It keeps you from jumping around with folks. If you're out there talking about random things all the time, same with social media content. Social media tip right here. Don't go try to talk about everything. Yeah. Pick the couple things you're going to consistently talk about, and then just do that.
Since you're on social media, everyone always asks us, what platform should we be on? Here's my question. What platform do you have the most customers on? Go beyond that one and forget everything else and dominate that one. Period. Start there and get that muscle memory down. Because the problem is you're not consistent because you don't know how to post across multiple channels. Go post on one channel and do that consistently. Then think about the rest. Yeah. And then we teach a whole nother class on how to invite people into that party, into that channel, because that's where it applies to sales. I'll be doing that later this afternoon. But anyway.
So alignment starts with that. Again, we were speaking with a company the other day, and they're like, we try to roll out these 3 different things, and I can't be too specific because it's software and stuff like that. And I don't want to call out specific softwares. But we got in trouble down in Georgia for that the other day. But they're trying to roll stuff out with their team. And the general manager told me, like, hey, I cannot get people to buy in. And I'm like, well, show me your last meeting agendas. And they have a larger team across states. I'm like, show me your last meeting agendas. and the meeting minutes and agendas were just dominated by them rambling and talking about stuff. So there was no organization. So if you really want to align and move change forward, it does start with what are the things we're going to consistently talk about. And to me, this also becomes your biggest litmus test. So if we think we're going to do something new, does it align with one of those pillars that we want to inspect consistently? And if it doesn't fall under our mission, our values, and those pillars, then we don't need to do it. We can focus on something else that aligns. So it does help you say no as well. What would you add?
No, it's saying no. Like we can't say yes to everything, and everything looks like a shiny object.
Yeah.
There's so many shiny objects out there, especially with all the things you can do with AI and all the things you can do and all the things. Okay, great, but who are you? See, having a vision and a mission statement, that's the vision is your identity as a title company. Who are you? So somebody said you have to get the who before the do. Okay? The who before the do. Your vision, it probably was Dr. Seuss. Your vision is the who. Your mission statement is the do. And your team needs to be very clear on it. I worked for a guy for 10 years in Nashville before I went into speaking and coaching, and he would plaster the vision and mission statement all over the company, all over the walls. There were banners on we built assembly lines for Nissan, Toyota. There were banners all over the shop walls, mission statements. We made team outings and events. We had awards, big trophies based on core values. Like everything revolved around the vision and mission. In fact, my password is still the first letter of the vision statement, or the vision sentence. Like one of my best passwords ever. It's the first. So don't go find out where I worked and find that. But there's a lot more. There's a lot more after that. Okay, but it was so impactful, and I was like, how am I going to remember this? I was like, I'm going to create a password around the vision statement. So anyway, just a quick tip. I've talked to many people over the weekend about rowing, and I put the picture in here because it's so perfect. Is try to row without alignment and see if you can win. But yet so many people in our company are not pulling on the oar of our company vision. And why is that? It's their fault, right? No, it's my fault as a leader because I have not made my vision clear and I have not reminded them time and time again of where my vision is at. So without further ado, let's get into some of the go executes here. Yeah. What are some of the things when you think vision and alignment, like what are some of the things you come to mind when it comes to pulling your team into this discussion?
You're not making a vision and mission statement every day. So if you don't have one yet, I think it's important to bring your whole team together to have this conversation, to identify the things that you're truly good at, where you want to really focus in and hang your hat when it comes to the result you're going to drive for your clients and their consumers. So that's where it starts. But if you already have one, it's a little more, you're not going to go adjust it all the time. Right. I think it is more of a conversation of then, does your team know what role they're playing that is helping drive that vision? Yeah. And do they feel supported in their job in doing that from you?
Yep.
So that would be number one for me.
Yeah. Number one is good. I think bringing them into it. And if you already have one, like Andrew said, just bring it in. We use the word consistently reminding. So in the company meetings, here's what I find a lot of times. Headlines, they dominate our phones. We wake up to them. They're right here on our phones. We come in, and sometimes as leaders, we can get really I always believe in being kind of apolitical, but sometimes we'll kind of just see 15 minutes of a meeting or a team this or that, or even if it's more a leadership team, we just kind of diatribe into kind of what's going on in the world. And I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for talking about what's going on in the world. Like we work with our people, right? We spend more time with our work family than our own families often, right? So there's time and a place to share that. But when it comes to moving the company forward, the shared value there has to be around what we have agreed to is aligning and driving us forward. So getting agreement from your team and then consistently reminding them how their daily works. And that all comes through metrics and ROI. What metric in their daily job task actually aligns to one of your core values, right? What metric? If you're wanting to go get Google reviews, right? And we teach this. Okay, that's great. But what does that tie into? In your vision and mission statement, what does that tie into? That's the client experience, right? So how are we gauging? Guys, by getting this review on every transaction, we are able to better gauge how we're doing in the marketplace. And not only that, our sales and marketing team can reuse that as they're selling, as they're restating our value proposition in the marketplace. So telling that person at the closing table how capturing that review is actually benefiting the company and keeping us in business, now they're tied into the why, right? So that's where I think the consistent reminder has to happen. But then let's go into the appreciation.
Well, one
piece.
thing on the consistent reminders.
Yeah.
never get tired of reminding folks that you work with and your team about the basics. We all need that. I see a lot of frustration, pent-up frustration in leaders because we feel like, man, I've told you this a million times. But human nature, we have a tendency to slip in life, right? If we're not trying to grow actively, and people have things going on in their lives, you all know it, you might slip at times in certain things you want to do. So never get tired. One of the best traits, I think, in a leader is never getting frustrated with your team for the reminders you need to give and the coaching and support you need to provide, because it rarely is a one-time conversation.
Yeah.
It's normally going to be an ongoing thing. And the more you can normalize those basic conversations, those what I call just slight adjustments, it's kind of like you're getting a little bit off track, you just bring it back. If anyone plays video games, anyone play video games in here? All right. So if you're doing this might be lost on some of you, but it's like driving a car, right? If you're starting to veer out of the lane, when in video games, if you jerk it real hard, you're going to spin out. Same in a car, right? If you're driving and veering out of the lane, you don't wait till you're almost all the way in the ditch and then rip it back, because you're going to spin out and it's all going to blow up. So it's just a matter of slight adjustments as you drive, just light touches on the joystick. That's all you need. And when it comes to the consistent reminders of their daily work and time, Tim, you hit on reviews, but I would talk to, number of files being processed. I would talk to quality of work, errors, things like that. Like, you have metrics you're tying back that you're having meaningful conversations. But the key here, and we might get into this in a minute, but if you're going to do the slight adjustments that are negative, guys, you got to have more that's recognition. This is so key. Yep. If you want your people to really lean into fixing stuff, you need to catch them doing the things right more than you're catching them doing the things that are wrong or that you think need to be done better. That's so key here, because you'll build equity. You ever get called to the manager's office and you're scared, or you have a Zoom thrown on, you don't know what's going on, you're like, uh-oh. Well, that's probably a sign that maybe in your organization, you're not doing enough recognition, because most of the time your team should want to talk to you, not be nervous to talk to you. So do a little internal gut check on that. Recognize more than you call out.
That's good. That's good. And then one thing I want to say is, how does this tie to tough times and, leading through tough times? I think that any leader, you study the greats of history, right? The World War II commanders who, were Battle of the Bulge. I love studying some of these people who had just had resiliency built into their very core. And if you really study, what do they have? They had one clear objective. They had one clear goal. And when it all came down to it, when the rubber met the road, when life and death were on the line, they had one clear goal. And they burned the ships. They were all in. They were all in. And they came to it and said, all my job here is to remain the leader, pointing my team in the direction we're going. Everything's not going to go perfectly. In fact, if your team is making some mistakes, that's a good thing, because those are training opportunities. Okay. And so one thing here I will say is, what ways are you helping your team focus and refocus on factors within their control? Because there's so much outside of our control. They're hearing way too much about the rates right now. They're hearing way too much about, our hope. We always believe you can't build a business strategy on hope. Build a business strategy on what your team can actually control. And that's actually a lot less than what's whirling around in their brain. So help them refocus on that. That's how we lead through difficult times.
So just to kind of summarize this one, the alignment drives your difficult times. Alignment to what are the things you have to have vision to know what's the next year. You don't need to know what's going to happen from a market perspective. You just need to know that I believe as a leader, if we focus on these things, as a team, we're going to survive. And if you as my team do these things, I will always have your back. Now let's have conversations consistently around these 4 things, right? Keep it simple, keep it actionable, and keep it measurable. Like, that's the biggest. Don't put a goal out there for your team that you can't measure in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Or worse yet, you put a goal out there for your team and then you never measure it, and that's where things just fall along the wayside.
Yeah.
So that, again, simplify to move forward just consistently, slowly. The biggest thing there is not trying to do too much, and then what you say you're going to do, actually do together as a team and have conversations about it consistently.
It's powerful. Let's keep moving. A lot more to dig in there, but change management. So again, we've talked about, aligning with vision and mission, right? We've talked about pulling people into the culture and really investing in the culture. Now I feel like, okay, we have some deposits. We're making deposits here, right? But anytime you want to go from good to great, you will face resistance. If you're not facing some resistance in the team somewhere, you're probably not you're probably not trying to go do things that the next quote I love. I'll come back to the thing, but John Rockefeller's quote: "The secret of success is to do the common things uncommonly well." So your team is probably doing common things in real estate transactions every day. Okay, how do we evolve? How do we change to do it uncommonly well? Because the companies who are going to start thriving when this market turns, they're the ones who have been doing it all the last year and a half uncommonly well. They have less volume doing uncommonly well, but what a better time. People are like, well, do you think it's going to get busy before the winter? I hope that it does, but I think some companies still have an opportunity to go get some muscle memory on doing uncommonly well before the increase starts happening. So if you're looking at anything right now, Craig said it. I mean, they're doing this with legislators to show them all the stuff that we do. I would say go back as a business owner, take all of your transactional moments and figure out what 2 or 3 you could actually go enhance and do uncommonly well, and then start practicing along those lines.
This kind of ties into me. Who coming out of here has something new you learned this week in our new vendor, or in your brain you have something you want to do different in your business all the time, and you got to refine it down to what makes the most sense. Like rank them, right? Like what is going to help us the most at first, and then work from there. If you have a team rolling something out new, especially when it comes to softwares, technologies, a different product, right? And I think back to one story that's kind of an anecdote that'll explain what I mean. One of our agents, they had an absolute need to switch to the underwriting search product because the types of transactions they were doing and all that, they really needed the indemnity that came along with that. They wanted that. But there are 2 key processors, or there are 2 key folks on the team that receive the searches and examine the searches, put the big kibosh on that, something they needed for their business. It was going to mitigate risk. It was going to cut down on some turn times. It was going to just be a better solution for them. But the 2 members of the team kind of kiboshed that because they were fearful that because they were no longer going to be examining the abstracts top to bottom and putting everything together, that their job was going to become redundant. But the leader rolled that out without ever having those conversations like, no, the most important work we're doing is curative. We still need you to examine the underwriter product. You're still going to need to make sure it's good. You're still going to have these duties and tasks. So they pushed back on something that was great for the company because they didn't understand how it was going to impact their job. And so I think one of the key things in this industry, if we're rolling out something new for your team, which members of your team are going to be impacted, and are you involving them on that decision making? Are you letting them, again, time how their role may change, but they're not at risk? I'm not saying there aren't redundancies at times. You got to deal with that. But that's one of the things here with the things we're trying to roll out, and Tim and I see it a little more on the marketing side. We're all going to go get on video. And then the leader has never gone to the team, pulled everyone together in a meeting and articulated, here's why the world's changing. We need to lean into this marketing as a team. We need to give our marketing team more content, whatever it is. And so you have one person over here churning and burning with something that they're supposed to implement, and no one else is on board because it hasn't been determined, is this something we actually are going to commit to as a whole and move forward towards?
As a leader, our job has to be clarity, bringing the organization clarity. And if we task anybody within our organization with change management, we have to set the tone for that change management first. That is getting everybody together virtually or the next time you're in person and saying, hey, here's, give the company report. Here's what's going well. Here's what we need to improve. And here are some things we need to lean into. And I have tasked so-and-so to be following up with each one of you over the next period. And they're going to be rolling this out. I need everyone's support. If there's any issues, you contact me. She's in charge, whatever, but empowering. I deal with so many frontline managers trying to implement change that some leader of a title company said, do this. And then my question to them is, has that leader made that kind of big announcement or that big push? And no. So she feels like she's in the back of the boat trying to turn the ship around, and all these branch managing attorneys or all these people who are supposed to be doing this thing, they're not even looking at her. They're just because they think, oh, this is just another fad. This is just another thing. And us marketing people were the world's worst. We're jumping at everything. So we probably brought it on ourselves that we're the ones who are always trying to get out there, do all the stuff. So we need leadership to come in and say, here's what I've tasked so-and-so with. This is so very powerful. So as a leader, I have to ask myself, and again, I look at the man in the mirror, how am I personally modeling adaptability and openness for my team? Openness to change, openness to hear their opinions, hear what needs to be changed. And then am I setting that tone? Okay. Powerful when it comes to change management. That's number one. And then I think there are definitely some strategies to clearly communicate the reasons. You talked about
I
that.
want to throw one thing in here. Look back over the last 10 months to 12 months on your team. How many new things have you done that are significant? And if you've done, I won't put a number on it, but if you've done quite a handful or two, you might be trying to do too much at once. It's really hard. Again, Rome wasn't built in a day, and implementing organizational-wide change with some, if it's reimagining communication, if it's getting everyone on board with growing the marketing presence, it could be rolling out new software, whatever it is. Be careful how much you're doing with your team, because that's where overwhelm, and we're going to get into that in a minute just to kind of wrap, but that's where overwhelm can happen. So the strategies, once you've identified this is something we need to do, this is something we're absolutely doing, make sure that everyone's coming together and understanding from the leader why, who's in charge, who's rolling it out, here's what everyone needs to contribute. And hopefully you've gotten buy-in from the key players first, so that you don't have the person who's like, yep, nope, not doing that. Now you have a whole other set of issues on your hands because you didn't take the time to pre-plan.
I think too, take a look in the rearview mirror, like you're saying, but also ask yourself, what change did you do or did you make that worked well, right? What change in the past have you made that worked well? And I do a bad job of deconstructing, like engineer it, like figure out why did that go well? Who bought in? Whose idea was it? How did it come to me? How did I help roll it out? Because sometimes as a leader, I just forget that, man, I was all in on that one. And then I wasn't excited about this change that my operating team needed, but I kind of went in half-hearted. Sometimes we just got to be honest as a leader, right? So what made successful change work in the past? And then how can I scale that? How can I deconstruct it and figure out the points on what made that successful, and then apply that to another change area in the future. And then the last but not least, this is massive. Are you listening? And when I say listening, that's from your external players, from your competitors, from your internal team. Have you listened, and are you listening to some mission critical change areas that you need to have happen? I see so many title companies wait way too long to make a good change. Technology, sales and marketing approach. I asked a large title company owner over lunch this week in Richmond. I said, what do you need, or sum up 2025 in one word? And he kind of joked. He said, dude, I don't know anything about 2025 yet. I'm like, I know, but that's why I'm here, right? So I'm like, 2025 in 1 year. In one word, he said, can I give you 2 sentences? I'm like, sure. He says, number one, I need to figure out how to keep my team selling over the winter months. That was number one for him. Why? Because he knows historically that doesn't happen. And then he said, and then number 2, I need to figure out how to streamline processes for the next refi boom. Because we're positioned for it, I need to streamline process. I need to be positioned for that. So what does that mean? What does that mean for him? There's probably some technologies. There's some, issuing policy. We did this with one of our companies recently, and it saved them they measured it $100,000 a year just issuing policies at the table.
Just a couple of things that we would always advocate for. And if you're in the room and you're a vendor or you're a title company listening to this online, look at how you're issuing your policies, and then on the backdrop, recording on the backdrop of remitting, paying people. There are ways now with softwares to be aggregating payments. Yeah. One check, one wire, online communication back to your underwriter. Most all the underwriters have these capabilities now. I know a shameless plug for F&F. We have amazing capabilities there. So at the end of the day, this is the time to be reimagining those internal processes, because I remember when I joined the industry, it was in the refi boom, and I was going out to agents who had boxes full of checks. They were policy lag because they weren't, in Maryland, they weren't issuing the final policy at the table, and recordations were lagged in Baltimore, and everything was happening. There's checks sitting there from months ago. I mean, you're sorting through these nightmares that if you put a little bit of elbow grease with your team into fixing, like, it's not all sales and marketing. To be the best sales and marketing, you need to have good back end.
Yep.
And if you really want to scale and grow. So now is the time to focus on those types of things. Yep. Like, not issuing policy at closing may not be right for everybody, but there are absolutely ways you record, disperse, and leverage after the transaction that we still see folks kind of doing it like it was done 10, 15, 20 years ago. And if you're really going to scale your business and work on your business, not in your business, you have to streamline those busy work tasks. Yeah. And that's one of the most important pieces, I think, in our industry to focus on before you get into the refi.
Right. Some of you all sat in on Sam's, and he did a great job yesterday, Sam Chalkat. I probably just butchered his last name.
I think you said it right.
But anyway, and AI. I mean, there are some uses for AI. He said it's not replacing, it's just taking some of the heavy lifting, some of the heavy work off of some of what you do. So there's absolutely some things there that we're absolutely helping agents with. But I think that this is where change, adaptability, evolution has to happen. But don't try to change it overnight. Don't go in and throw it at the team and just hope it sticks. You really have to break it down one thing at a time. Less is more. And then if you did implement a change, how do you now, maybe the next year is just more deepening that change to really cement it? Because that's also true, right? Sometimes we have good adoption and then that we slide off of it. And so now we kind of fallen back into why? Because the rut over here is much deeper for 20 years than it is for the last year. So really take some time to think about those clear things. So really big topic here, but let's move on. So this one's big. This one's big for me. I'm reading a book called Indistractable by Nir Eyal. It is a powerful, it's a big yellow book. If you want to buy it on Amazon, it's Indistractable. And he actually helped invent Google. And he helped in Silicon Valley invent the addictive social media technologies that we all are faced with today.
I really want to read that.
So it's called Indistractable, and you will be blown away by the science behind how these companies have hacked into our neurological systems, okay? It'll blow your mind. It'll also give you some freedom as you start becoming aware. But in our businesses, I think we have to realize that the informational overload that comes with being in an IT-heavy technologically advanced real estate transactions, that just gives our team way too much. I mean, the nature of our business gives them too much access to everything. I mean, there's so much coming in the inbox. So I want to get really nitty-gritty. Are we as leaders really helping our team learn how to say no, how to turn things off, how to manage their inboxes, how to send better messaging? For instance, one little hack I was taught by a leader a long time ago was tell somebody when you want to be moved to BCC. So like when I tee somebody up in an email, very, very simple. I'll say, I'm introducing you to so-and-so and I've moved myself to be, or when you reply, please move me to BCC. Like I'm telling them, move me to BCC. I don't need to be involved anymore because I don't need the 36 emails that happen after that. I got things to do. But your team, do they know they can do that? Do they have that freedom to do that, right? Does your team know that they can turn an out of office on when they have a time block for business development? Can they turn an out of office on and like free themselves up so they can just turn their brain and their inbox off? I think a lot of us still are struggling with PTSD from COVID or the refi boom, where we get up in the morning because we had to, right? 3 a.m. we started, 9 p.m. we ended. And it was just, so now we're coming out of that and we still wake up. And I ask people like from a high performance level, who gets up in the morning and checks their email? You'd be shocked how many people don't even get out of the bed before they check their email. There's something wrong with that. Guys, there's something wrong with that. I mean, we are human beings before business people. We're human beings. We're dads. We're moms. There's something wrong with that. Have some honest conversations about what information overload looks like, feels like, and identify with that. Your team will thank you. You'll thank yourself. And then figure out how to unplug or give permission to unplug from certain threads, certain things. And then the other thing as a leader, just be cognizant of, meeting overload, email CC over, like sometimes we just CC way too many people, right? There's just some communication best practices, I think, that we can really lean into.
A little training with our team on, what do you need to be CC'd on versus not? But I want to play devil's advocate for a minute because we're in real estate. When do real estate agents work? All the time, right? I mean, weekend open houses and stuff like that. And so, title companies, I'm going to play devil's advocate. You
Please
give
do.
us some advice,
Please do.
But how do I give myself boundaries with my clients who sometimes demand the 9 o'clock email, or we think they demand it? Like, I'm going to be devil's advocate because this comes up a lot. So how do we deal with that in information overload? Like, it's our family time. It is now, we've done our work for the day. We're focused with the kids. We're doing our thing. How do you manage that without losing business or feeling like you're losing business?
Well, I think it first off, over communication. You have to tell your people what's up with you so they understand. You're good clients, just like you're a good client of mine. You're my number one client.
Thanks.
Right? So my brother's my number one client, right? He's, when he says jump, I ask how high. There's only a few people in my life like that, right? Joe, you're number one client, right? You have to be. But these guys will know, like, if I have a certain boundary, I'm like, hey, I've got 4 kids. I'm with kids at this time or whatever I'm at. If you need something, if it's an emergency, you call me. My phone is always on. My notifications are off, but you call me. Okay. Do you know just having that conversation will free your mental space up from that constant, when your kid's trying to talk to you about their grade that they got and you're sitting there going, because you saw an email pop in from a real estate agent and you've never had this conversation with that real estate agent. So they don't know to call you. So it's totally your fault if you don't reply. Okay. There's more, we control this more than we give ourselves credit for. Now, I agree that there's going to be something burning up somebody on the team call you have to get into, but we have tricked our brains, or our society, constant plug-in has tricked our brains. I was talking to somebody yesterday. People expect a response to an email at all times now. We do in this industry. So you need to have some good, honest conversations with your good clients about what those expectations look like, and then give them the protocol for a 911. Okay? Our emergency personnel, we pay them very well. I'm happy to sign my tax check every day to Buckingham County because the fire department does a fantastic job. But I also know there's a 911 because those guys go to bed too, right? So you have to be able to set that up. Indistractable. All right, let's get into some actual. Brian Tracy says that communications is a skill, just like talking, learning how to speak, learning how to say. Communication internally, like with technology, that's a whole nother level of communication, right? It's a skill. We can learn it, and it's like riding a bicycle or typing. If you're willing to work at it, you can rapidly improve the quality of every part of your life. Communicate, over-communicate, communicate proactively, communicate with clarity. I teach my team, put your ask in the first sentence of the email. I will read your reasoning with that ask, but put your ask in the first sentence of the email. I'm on the road. I want to see really quickly, and I might pick up the phone and call because it's an easier phone conversation to answer that ask. But I might not dig down enough because I'm walking into something. It is a great sales hack with your customers. If you want to meet with them, put, hey, can we meet next week? And then tell them why you want to meet. But put your ask in the top. You'll get better response. Zig Ziglar says too many people in life are a wondering generality instead of a meaningful specific. So in your communication, be specific, be clear, and less is more, right?
And the same line as that, because this is super practical. Also the platitudes, if you're not doing this yet in your life, do this, it'll change your business. If you're starting a text or an email to someone, if you're still starting it with, hey, Tim, I hope this email finds you doing well. Hope you had a great weekend. And then getting into what you're into, like, you gotta, like, one of the most powerful things you can do is flip that script to say what you're actually reaching out for first. And then after that, hey, Tim, by the way, I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you're doing great, because it's more genuine. If you put it first, people know, skip that and get to the meat of the email. If you put it last, and I found texting, this is especially powerful, you're not being ulterior with the platitude, if that makes sense. Because platitudes normally in business are a little ulterior. We just want to get to our ask in a polite way. Get to the ask first, and then put the meaningful platitude at the bottom. Like, hey, by the way, I am thinking about you, and I really do hope that you had it well. Yeah. Those little flips like that can help you a lot in sales and in your communications to be more effective. So execute.
Yeah, and one real quick, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, like small group huddles, like with leaders and stuff. Like, don't be too like crazy about this, but as we get larger scale and we're talking like multiple people, different departments, be very choosy, right? The other thing that's a good hack is, can you turn something into a weekly huddle? And this type of communication, this type of ask, if not urgent, can be dumped onto a weekly huddle sheet. And then you huddle and address it, because chances are, as a leader, you're being asked the same question multiple times that could wait till like this like weekly huddle. So like sales huddles, weekly management or monthly management huddles, where everyone can have that seat at the table. And if it can wait, it can wait. And then just kind of coach your team on, if it's not urgent, this is where we're going to talk about those core things, put it in one of those buckets and let's talk about it. How many times have we posed our team a question on a call and everything's crickets? We need to teach how to bring more to that meeting by giving them that bandwidth to dump something into a bucket, or what I call a parking lot. So give that freedom to your team, give that rhythm and consistency, and you'll see that communication will start being more streamlined. So keeping them focused amidst constant industry changes and news. I think just, again, we talked about it, went really deep. do some training around communication. Now's a good time to do it. IT overload is not going to stop. It's only going to get worse. You saw Sam's presentation. AI is generating more and more. Okay. Email security would probably be a good thing to touch on while you're doing that training. And then also, just as you're a leader, be consistent in your messaging out. If you're putting it in an email, be ultra thoughtful. Okay. Your email and your tone is lost in that. So if you can save something more negative for an in-person or like on virtual, do it then, as opposed to putting something more negative into an email or written form.
And believe it or not, if you're emailing your team outside of business hours, that can absolutely drive this kind of need for them to respond. And this is not an Andrew idea. I stole this from social media because I saw a CEO doing this and I thought it was brilliant. But he had in his disclaimer right after his emails was, hey team, if I'm sending this outside of business hours, I have no expectation that you look at this or respond to this until you are in your working business hours. This is just the time that works best for me to send this email. So again, most of our communication woes can be solved by just being honest and upfront. And your team can feel that stress and overwhelm, like I need to respond because I got looped into something and it's Sunday at 2:00 when it's supposed to be the family time. So again, this kind of ties back into culture too, right? Like
Are you digging me a little bit here?
This is all the things. No, not
You're
really.
digging me a little bit here.
Oh, yes. Not really.
I'll be on a plane somewhere emailing Andrew like 15 things. He's
I'll
like,
wake up on Saturday morning to 16 emails. It's like, dang it, Tim. I had my
yes, I love it. Love it.
No,
So I'm
I'm
going to
kidding.
use that though.
I'm
That's
kidding.
brilliant. I've never heard
But
that
putting
before.
a
That's
nice
brilliant.
disclaimer on there. Again, it's not my idea. I stole it. It's R&D. I ripped off
Yeah.
and duplicated. But it's a good one.
Think through some strategies. Again, we've given you some, but think through some strategies that could work for you. Okay. And real quick, we promised a break at 11:15. We're right up at 11:15. Okay. We're on for 2. We're not taking 2. We'll probably take another 20 minutes. We'll finish in about 5,
Right.
and then have about 15 of Q&A. But if you wanted to go to Michelle's class, she's doing a great class on AI. I know she's going to do it in Southern Maryland again with us. So, I mean, happy to, you can hop over there, or we'll all vamoose here in a little bit and go over and bomb the last part of it. So whatever you want to do, feel free. But let's see, what are some strategies? And then what techniques do you use to help your team prioritize? Again, I think that there are certain key tasks, key emails, key things. Let them know, like if a real estate agent emails, that's your number one customer. Like let them know what's important.
Right.
Let them know in priority of that. Let them know what can wait. Let them know what needs a response immediately. Like teach those things. So we'll wrap that one up. Let's move into team health and empathy, because this one is so very powerful. I believe that empathy can help define your workplace culture. It can guide your smarter hiring decisions.
Right.
Because if you lean with empathy, you're going to get to know people where they're at before they even come on board with you, instead of just leading with a very strong agenda and it's all your own and you didn't take the time. Promote strong employee retention, enhances teamwork, improves customer satisfaction, and much more. So I believe it's an important leadership skill that every business owner, manager, and supervisor should absolutely understand and practice. I'm going to tell you a quick story on empathy. So right when COVID hit, 3 months later, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I'm leading a region. I had multiple speaking engagements that I was now flipping to virtual Zooms. And I'm teaching some of our title companies like how to even do Zoom. So like there's that on top of that. And then she comes back with this news. So, and I had a lot of things we were rolling out. I was working with some software people to develop certain things, and I'll never forget. And all you software people, cover your ears. But I had a call. I was on a Zoom with a bunch of Truist loan officers doing a coaching with one of our clients, and I had a stacked up thing, and I knew I had to go to UVA in like 2 hours after that. And I get this call, and it's from a closing software. And I had promised her an introduction to one of my agents, and I felt bad. Right when I saw the phone call coming in, I'm like, dang it, because I don't like to let the ball down on people. And but again, I was like, dang it. And then I just felt the guilt. I hadn't gotten back to her. So it went to voicemail. We go up to UVA a couple hours later, come back. I'm emailing till like the wee hours. I put the kids to bed. My wife's an emotional wreck. We're in bed later that night, and she's snuggled up. It's about 11:30, and I'm just going through like texts I've missed, voicemails I've missed, and I'm just texting, hey, day got away from me. I'll buzz you in the morning. Whatever. And I'm just going to use my call block. So I get down to my voicemail, and I never forget, I saw, you ever get a voicemail at like 2 minutes? This was before the transcription, by the way. Now they transcribe it in the moment, which is beautiful. It's like, do I want to take this? Oh yeah. Hey, Brad. You know, it's like interruptive, whatever. But no, this was before then. It wasn't transcribed. But it was 15 seconds. You ever get like a 2-minute voicemail and you're like, I don't have 2 minutes to listen to a voicemail. By the way, another little sales hack, leave very, very short voicemails. Hey, give me a buzz when you get some windshield time. I got an idea to run by you. Boom. Be done. Like, get them intrigued about calling you back. But anyway, Chris leaves me this voicemail, 15 seconds. And in my brain, I was like, okay, I can take that. Just want to hear. And here's what, I literally bawled my eyes out that night from a software provider who I didn't really want to talk to anyway. But she said this, Tim, I heard your wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. My sister just walked through this, and I just want to reach out and tell you, if you need anything, let me know. And I literally, that moment, said, I have to. And I am the world's worst. I have my agenda. I know where I'm headed. I have goals. I have vision. And I'm like, pfft, and I don't stop to say, how are you? And that day I said, I'm going to be a more empathetic leader, because that changed me. In fact, who got the first call the next morning was Chris at the software provider I really didn't like, who I promised an introduction to somebody. She got the introduction. We had a phone call, and it like filled my soul. So just don't underestimate the power of and I put the truck on here because I love passing this truck every time. I don't even know if this trucking company is in business anymore, but the one that says our most valuable asset is like 53 feet ahead, on the back of the truck, or our most valuable resource sits here. Like that mantra needs to be our mantra as leaders. Take care of our people. We hire people to do amazing things for us, and then somehow we forget why we hired them to do amazing things for us. Take care of your people. Go start investing appreciation and empathy into your people. Simon Sinek's quote, leadership is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of the people in our charge. Don't be afraid to get a little personal. Don't be afraid to roll up your sleeves a little bit. Sometimes we have that okay, I gotta know when there's always gonna be some boundary level or pull somebody else in. I mean, I've addressed some situations where I felt like I need to pull my wife into something just because to be appropriate. But I was there for the team, and we addressed situations going on and took care of people. You do this much better than me. Let's be very, very honest about this. You asked me the other day on a call, you said, bro, how are you? And it meant a lot. So you do carry that, I think, better than me. I'm not trying to pump you up here on air, but you do. But empathy, man, how does that hit you? And what should we be doing looking out into the new year with our team?
Just the biggest thing that stuck with me for empathy is taking I out of it when someone's going through something. I think we all have it. So that's sympathy. Sympathy is like, oh, I know how you feel. And the best lesson I ever learned with empathy was don't say I, take it out. And if someone's going through something, or a team member has something going on, hey, what's going on? I sense something's off. Are you okay? And if they're willing to share, put the phone away, sit down, be willing to invest that time, because that's where the rubber meets the road in good relationships. And then the practice of empathy verbally is not saying, I know what you mean. It's saying something to the effect of like, that sucks. That sucks. Take I out of it. You don't always have to have a solution with empathy.
Yeah.
Just listening matters. And so empathy, where you can listen, matters most. And again, I won't tell my whole story there, but I've had impactful moments in my life where I had a lot going on, and a leader noticed and became someone I respect for life because of the way they invested in me and just listened, and then were able to come alongside and support me in my work. And I know there's people in the room and people we know in this industry that do that for their people.
Yeah.
Keep it up, because that stuff matters. At the end of the day, your people are the only reason you can move anything forward in business. And if you ever lose sight of that, or you create a culture of churn where it's a hire and a fire and a hire and a fire. I even have a little bit of a problem with the thing that says hire slow and fire fast, because I've had team members on my team. I struggle with that. I've led a team where I came into a situation where someone said, this guy, sucks, and you're going to need to get rid of him. And we have all the performance reviews and all the stuff going on. And I just got to know him over the course of a month, and he turned into a top producer on my team for the next 3 years. It was just someone was looking at numbers and managing the numbers and never took the time to invest in the relationship. So for me, that's empathy. It all starts there. Don't forget that. Balancing the demands.
Yeah.
You got to be, Tim, you said there's a line there, just a word of caution. You can't live in personal space as a leader. So you do have to have some boundaries there. But start with that. Start with that as often as you can, because it will allow you to have more productive business conversations. But don't live there. move on, give solutions. And then if it's something you don't feel comfortable addressing with a team member, offer support. There are so many resources out there that are free that you can offer your team if they are dealing with something challenging.
Yep.
But at least recognizing, having a conversation and know your limitations, support, and still manage workload. You can't just go into, and we're not talking about this as a whole today, but don't get stuck in the ever-ending circle of we only talk about personal things and we can never talk about business. So you do need to recognize that, but always start there and be willing to listen.
At some point in an empathetic conversation, you can absolutely move to, hey, would something like this add value to you? Because I think there's others on the team that could probably benefit. So for instance, I worked for a guy for 10 years. He would put on the Financial Peace University every year for the entire team. You paid the $100 to go through, and then he'd reimburse you if you graduated from it. And it was like a 7 nights, one night a week for 7 weeks. And we went through, and I learned more about investing in real estate. I learned more about how to balance my budget. As a young guy, I learned more financial literacy. It made me a better employee. But he knew that there were people in the company always living paycheck to paycheck. So he invested in financial wellness, right? Why? Because he had those conversations very empathetically listening, and then he was able to flip it into solution-based. So don't think empathy is just sitting there, oh, that sucks. Because you're a leader. You're a leader for a reason. We can actually do something to effect change for our people, but we won't know exactly where that's most meaningful until we first listened. So the ROI of empathy, I want to end here, is it is absolutely important, and internally and externally. How many of us right now could reach out to our good partners and say, hey, how are you doing? How's this small rate cut affecting you? How's business right now? How many of us could reach out to some of our top real estate agents and lenders and say, hey, what's 2025 going to be? What does 2025 need to be for you? You may find somebody's about to exit the industry. You had no clue. You may find, that's the power of empathy. It doesn't require a solution. So many times in sales, we are all about, I need to tell them about how great we are, how much better we do it than this title company. Sometimes we just need to reach out and say, how are you? What are you going to need? What's your vision? Just asking more empathetic based questions that require no solution, just listening, will then let us come back and build some ROI around what we can bring as a solution.
Couldn't agree more. Tim and I have on our podcast, and as we wrap, we're going to ask you to go follow us if you don't, but we do have an episode on there as People Before Profits. And it's not about bottom line not mattering. It's all about not putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And in today, leading through change, if we were to summarize it, it goes back to first caring about your people and simplifying so that you can go more consistently and go further.
Yeah. We'll end with this quick story. It's one of my favorites, but a lieutenant in the Revolutionary War, he's cracking the whip. He's on his horse, cracking the whip with these 3 guys trying to get this cannon. I think it was the cannoneers right back then. They're trying to get this cannon out of this snow-ridden, ice-ridden ditch. And he's up on his, wielding the sword, cracking the horse's whip. He's all hot and heavy. Come on, man, you can do it. You can do it. And this white horse gallops past him. And the gentleman gets off the horse and jumps in and helps push this cannon over top of the trench. And he's thinking, who in the world would do this? That was an officer. Who? And as the man turned around, he noticed it was General Washington. And he goes to full salute, General Washington. And Washington said nothing, just looked at him, got back on his steed and rode away. And it's one of my favorite stories, because what did he do? He literally took his position, shoved it, and got in the trench with his team when it was needed most. So I want to say this: leading through change in tough times, will end here, means be a leader of one. Determine when you wake up what mindset you're going to enter your day with. Determine what you're going to do for yourself personally, for your mental health, for your physical health. Be consistent yourself. Lead one. Actually, that's the hardest thing to do, is lead one. I am the world's worst to lead. But if I'll lead myself well, then I can only then lead others better and well. So we'll end there, but we'll leave this up for a second and go to some Q&A. Any questions? I know we lost some people to Michelle's class, and I'm happy to see that. So yeah, I think we're going to go sit in the end and support her, because this is her first public speaking, and we've been helped behind Michelle and just celebrating her. So that's awesome. But any questions before we go? Was this good? Did you guys get value out of this? Awesome.